Hello and welcome to another episode of Steelfur Speaks. I am, of course, Finbar, aka Steelfur, the host of this podcast. You'll see in my background, there's loads of cardboard boxes and stuff. Don't worry, I haven't become an Amazon delivery driver. I am just selling off a load of spare board games and cards and TCGs, and I'm selling Magic stuff and Secret Lairs and Star Wars Unlimited stuff. I'm selling a pile of stuff that I just don't have the time to appreciate as I kind of refocus down on Flesh and Blood and my other hobbies. Including running and cooking and all those kind of healthy things that I'm supposed to be doing in my spare time. In this week's podcast, we're going to talk about the Japanese launch of part of the Mistveil, world first premiere, how it went. We're going to talk about first impressions of the new set. We're going to talk about heroes in the new set, power levels, complexity, what I find interesting, what I don't. And then we're just going to talk generally just about Fab and things that are going on and prep for nationals and that kind of thing. So stay tuned and we'll get into that. So first things first, I mean, obviously the Calling Tokyo happened. Really great event, won by OO, I think is his name. OO. I'm going to assume it's pronounced as it looks. Who obviously won the Calling. The top 8 had really good international representation, but it was also really good to see, you know, 4 Japanese players also coming in strong. You know, I know some of these names are definitely familiar from the TCG scene. I've seen tweets saying these are some good Magic players who are coming over to Fab, so that's really great to see. And obviously we had Florian Christian from Austria winning the Battle Hardened, and also kind of a diverse Battle Hardened there as well, so that's really good to see. All in all, you know, the Calling sold out at 800 people, which I think was a really reasonable number to aim for a first tournament. I'm really happy with that. And it just looked like it was really fun, aided by the fact, and we'll get into part of the Mistveil a bit more later, but this really does seem like a fantastic set, and it seems like the 8 packs and sealed led to a lot of consistency for decks, and that was really fueling a lot of enjoyment and fun. So I'm really excited by that. I'm excited for my own pre-releases. I'm going to 2 next week. They are a bit more expensive, which, you know, is a bit tricky because, you know, spending, I think, £75 on pre-releases is a bit rough, but I hope to have a good time. And obviously I do get those 8 packs, so I can have a bit of enjoyment that way. It is worth noting, however, you know, this is a news channel, so we do attempt to try and bring facts to the table and talk about things comfortable and uncomfortable. So it is worth noting, for those who are unaware, the VODs from the Calling Tokyo, the Friday and the Saturday VODs are, as of recording this video, not available on FABTCG or on YouTube. It does look like there will be an edited version of those videos coming out. We've already seen slips and clips from that coming out. And I want to provide just like some factual context for exactly what happened without causing too much, you know, like opinion or those kind of things. People who know me, who follow me on Twitter, will know that I stand with the cause of equality and fairness and giving people both the right to defend themselves publicly and making sure we have an inclusive and friendly environment, but also not getting involved in public witch hunts wherever possible, unless there is good and clear evidence. In this case, I think there is potentially good and clear evidence from trusted sources. You know, you should believe people when they're telling things, but this is factually what happened, and if there is more lurking beneath the surface, then I'm not obviously going to comment on that. So what happened on Saturday, around about I think 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon for me, so around about round 4 at the event. People had been watching the stream. Only round 1 had been streamed. Round 2 and 3 had just had hold music playing and the countdown timer resetting, and then James White came on and cancelled the show for that day and saying that it wouldn't come back until tomorrow. Why did he do this? So during the course of 2 days of the event, so Friday and Saturday, both of the male casters on the stream, to different extents, had been making, we'll say, sexualized comments about the female caster. Now, to what extent she was participating in that is a bit unclear. There were times when she looked uncomfortable, according to viewers. There were times when the viewers were just like, you can't say this stuff. It doesn't matter if she's okay with it. Like, this is the global launch of this game in Japan. This is, you know, a premiere stream, you have to keep a level of professionalism, even if she's agreed that it's a bit of a funny in-joke, right? So both of these casters were making these sorts of comments. One of them clearly started it. The other one joined in, but obviously said some things. And then after that, there was a bit of an outrage on Twitter. And then one of the casters came on with the female caster, made an apology, explained that they've had this running joke between them before that started in Queenstown. And then, you know, that appeared to be resolved. But then, of course, James White said, no, this is ridiculous. In addition, there have been other posts from cosplayers and other members of the community saying that that particular caster's actions have been unpleasant towards them. So just to put the names out there, because there are there. So the caster in question is Flake. The other male caster on the stream was Elliot. And Yui Tokiwa was the female caster from Japan, who obviously has very good English, but English is her second language from what I can tell. So, you know, maybe some of the nuances of this situation went past her. I'm not entirely sure. In terms of what was said, now I am always on the fence about this because I don't like exposing people to repeated harm. You know, I think that's a pretty good principle. So I understand that the VOD was taken down, but I also don't like removing the evidence in terms of there not being, you know, records of what was said, because a lot of people have messaged me and been like, how do I know what was said and how bad it was without seeing what was said? So let's put a content warning over this section. You know, if you don't like hearing sexualized comments directed at women, then obviously you're not going to like this section. But I will just read the things that were said so you can get a context of how badly they were said, right? So clip one, this is the 3 clips that were highlighted on Twitter. Flake, the security team has put Elliot between Yui and I. Apparently the chemistry was creating a fire hazard, so we have to make sure this is all on the level. Elliot responded saying, yeah, the induced intimacy was a bit too high on this one. That's obviously a play on the recent new card, induced intimacy from Mistveil. Clip 2, Elliot and Yui are talking. Elliot says, I trust you with everything. Yui says, okay, oh, thank you. Elliot says, I'm sounding so simpy right now, and I did not know that I had it in me. Flake then responds, hey, you want to get some of those big cards. You have an impulsive desire to get those big cards, much like, you know, like the impulsive desire that's staring Tarek in the face right now. Clip 3. Elliot, I'm trying to do some matchmaking here myself in the caster booth, if you get my drift. Flake and Elliot laugh. Flake says, I ain't saying anything here, my dude, but you're invited to the engagement party. Elliot, thank you very much. I'm appreciative of that. So you can see kind of a range of comments there. They are all like definitely of a kind of flirtatious and, you know, kind of sexualized nature, not aided by the fact that Nu has a lot of sexualized names in her cards, which both male casters were doing puns on pretty much consistently while they were on stream. So those are not the extent of the incidences, but those are just some samples of incidences that have been recorded that I found transcripts of that I wanted to report on. So, like, this is just unprofessional, right? In terms of, you know, saying these things to your female co-worker on a public broadcast in front of an entire country / the world. You know, even if she's opted in, which is what the apology that Flake and Yui did together says, and even if they have this running commentary, people still weren't very comfortable with it. And then I think it was reinforced by some notable cosplayers like Carolina, or is it Carolina, coming out on Twitter and saying, actually, he's been a bit creepy to me as well. And that, I think, pushed, and we don't even know as well what else was said behind the scenes to further reinforce this, but that, of course, is what has pushed James White to make his decision to cancel the stream and then bring it back on the Sunday without Flake included. Now, Elliot was included, and we do have his apology here that I just want to highlight to people. So now the weekend is over, just want to reflect and share a few things. Sorry to the community for what you had to endure. There's no excuse for how things went down, and it is my folly for being someone who goes with the flow. I am learning. I had an exceptional time working with the broadcast crew. They are patient and provided wonderful mentorship for someone who is still new to this. I think I was brought in to give voice to the regional players as they are folks who are close to my heart. I'm very grateful. Then he talks about how much he likes Tokyo. He talks about representing Singapore and how it was great to work on the cast with everyone. And just, you know, he's not sure how this goes on for him. He's received some hate messages, which is hard when it comes from a community he quite likes, but he was grateful for the opportunity, right? So, you know, and obviously there's people defending him and supporting him. What I will say is, so like, you're on the cast with someone who's been doing this now for a year, and Flake has been doing this maybe for longer than a year, and has been repeatedly on LSS streams. It's easy to understand how you could assume, based on the actions of your co-caster and, you know, the discussion behind the scenes of, hey, this is a running joke, that we're engaged, etc., you would feel comfortable participating. You can't take away from the fact that he did say some pretty, we'll call them, you know, racy, unpleasant things. But you can understand how, like, for Elliot, it's strike one. And for Flake, based on comments he's made before about Betsy, for other behavior that's come through in tweets and probably private emails to James White, that's not just strike two, that's probably just strike three, right? And the fact is that the amount of people that are needed to stream Fab across the world isn't that many, right? I didn't make the cut. And I'm, you know, still here making YouTube, but, you know, it's not that many, and you can just take the best people. Like, you can just take, you know, Pankaj and Sam and Erica and, you know, Roman and all of these really good, really great talent, and you don't need to take the one that has question marks, right? And I think that's where it comes down to. If you're thinking, should this person get cancelled, right? There's a lot of discussion about cancellation on YouTube and things like that, and it's like, oh, it's not right for this person to get cancelled just for a few things he said. He shouldn't lose his job. But the fact is that this job itself is a privilege. We don't need a lot of people to do it. And if you don't think there aren't loads of people waiting in the wings who don't have this negative connotation attached to them now, there are. Like, think about people who would love to cast a calling or higher. You know, think about, you know, you've got Howling Minds and Shamir Sami, Shishmir himself, you know, who everyone knows for his signature sound. They want to break into casting. You've got the entire Push the Point crew. I know there's 3 of them, but they all want to do it. You've got other competitive people like Rhea. You've got a whole slew of professional, high-quality Fab players who are also quite good behind a microphone, who would happily be the person you fly out to Japan from America or from Europe to commentate a calling, who would give you that time and would happily get paid for it. You know, the problem is that really we're actually talking about a meritocracy job with very, very few slots. And I would say 50, 60 people who would like that opportunity, plus all the ones who would consider that opportunity. And I've said before that, like, one of the problems with a small game like Fab is that there are these casting opportunities, but there's not really a big enough demand for there to be a pipeline. Like, there's not a junior casters academy or a way to get experience aside from just volunteering your own time at like a battle hardened or making it on your local scene, like casting your nationals and that kind of thing. But even those slots are highly contested, right? So the fact is there are so many people waiting in the wings who would do a good job that the right, and in fact, actually, let's not say the right, let's say the privilege of being someone who gets to cast Flesh and Blood, because it is a privilege. It isn't just a job. You are also a figurehead, a spokesperson, many people's first introduction to the game. It is a privilege. Doesn't come lightly, you know? It doesn't come lightly. And the fact is that you have to bring your A game, and you also have to deliver what people want, right? You have to be a voice that people want to hear. You have to be a good role model, because that is what you essentially become. And unfortunately, a misstep like this, where you take a humor that is, you know, even if people like some people might have found it funny. It might be funny to a certain percentage of Fab's user base. But if it's offensive to the other percentage, which is a percentage that LSS wants to foster and grow and make to feel safe and protected, and we know that that's stated in their ethos, and they support LGBTQ only tournaments and online leagues and things. They have supported those, and they have been very vocal in their support of, you know, both female identifying and also, you know, trans people and LGBTQ people and the plus and the A and everything, right? We have gotten the impression that LSS is quite supportive of a broad and diverse community, right? So if you come in with a humor that makes it seem like you are being, you know, inappropriate with a, you know, one of the first and few women who have been able to or found time or been given an opportunity to cast Fab. And, you know, I've been saying since the start, more diverse voices, please, you know, and they got Erica on and that was fantastic, you know, because she's really good. And, you know, and you're speaking to her in a way that makes some of your audience uncomfortable. Like, not to be mean, but you just kind of blew it, right? You just kind of blew your opportunity, right? Because people don't want to hear that. And if you do it, and that this is a job where you only need 6 or 7 people, it's like you lost your opportunity. It's like, yeah, like, I mean, that's just the way it is. I don't know. That's just the way it is. Anyway, I want to stop talking about this now because I don't want the whole, like, I want there to be a good record of exactly what happened, some of the things that were said, and you can read that and say, this was fair, this wasn't fair. You can, you know, if the VOD doesn't go back up with those comments, and it shouldn't, I still do believe that there should be a record of those comments and the sort of thing that caused this to happen. Just because I think it's important for the community. And I also just want to say that if you haven't, watch James White's apology, which is on the Fab YouTube, where he cancels the stream. And if you were ever uncertain that LSS stood behind, you know, minorities, smaller communities, that kind of thing, if you thought maybe the company doesn't like women because they print, you know, too many feet pics or whatever the jokes are going on at the moment, you know, and the rest, you know, just listen to that and listen to how unamused he is that he has to do this. Disappointed, I would say, if I watched that video again. I would say he's thoroughly unimpressed that he's having to make this decision. He's thoroughly disappointed that he has to cancel coverage of his game launching in a new market, the largest TCG market in the world, and he has to cancel the VOD because he feels like his casters have let him down. Like, he's annoyed. Like, I was watching that video. I think that man is visibly, like, irritated, annoyed, and frustrated with good reason. So if you're thinking LSS doesn't believe in you know, minorities, I don't think anyone's thinking that. There's your proof, right? They didn't just say, oh, it's fine, keep going with the stream, leave it up there. They took down the VODs, they cancelled the stream on what is one of their biggest events of the year, just to say, look, that's not okay. Enough is enough. There you go. Moving on then, we'll just draw a pause on that. I'll take a little bit of a flavor break, and by flavor break, I mean I'm going to make a recipe recommendation. If you like the flavor of like Szechuan and beef and stuff like that, I really recommend Tian Bing. I'm going to say that wrong, but my girlfriend is trying to teach me because she studied Chinese. Tian Bing is, I think, how it's supposed to go. It's like a declension on the X and then a short syllable on the B. I'm working on it. This is absolutely delicious. So it's a meat pie. So it's basically these flat, fried on each side, packets of pastry. And in the middle, there's this meat filling. So you can use pork, lamb, beef. I really like beef, onions, bit of Szechuan peppercorn, bit of chili, right? And you can kind of see in the video here that, oh, too loud. You can kind of see in the video here just like that juicy, mincy, you know, you're kind of frying them on each side. I really recommend this. So it looks like it's a hassle, and I'll be honest, it is a bit, because basically you have to make the mince filling with the onions, and I think they're using a bit of celery. You make all of that, right? It's a bit of a hassle. And then you have to make this dough, which is actually reasonably easy, because it's just flour and hot water and a bit of salt. And then you basically make these packets and you fold them over. and then you basically fry them on each side. Now, the reason I say this is a bit of a hassle, but it is worth it, is that when you do this, you can make tons of them, right? So I made like 20 when I did this, and they freeze really, really well, and they microwave really well when they're frozen. So what I did was actually make like 20 of these. I had 2 on the day with some rice, and then I froze, well, I put 4 in the fridge, and then I froze 16 of them in foil wrap so I could take out portions. And then I just microwaved them for like 3 or 4 minutes. And then the inside, they microwave really easily. And then I basically had Tian Bing. Anyway, you can tell me if I'm doing it right or wrong. I basically had that in the fridge for 2-3 weeks, having a couple every other day. And it was great. Okay, moving on. Perceptions of Part the Mistveil, right? Absolutely knocked it out of the park. Absolutely fantastic set. I'm not even mincing words. This is candidate for best Fab set I think they've released. It's just it's mechanically complex, but also straightforward at the same time. It's everything I love, right? The gameplay pattern is oh so straightforward, but the complexity is there. So, like Zen, on the face of it, yeah, you're going to make a tiger. You're going to pitch the weapon. You're going to come in with the weapon. You're going to come in with an attack. You're going to come in with the tiger. Maybe you're going to do something else. But the variance on how you make tigers and how you use them, and just the presence of stuff like Cosmic Awakening, levels of enlightenment, you know, that kind of thing, just adds so much complexity to the cards, right? The same thing with Nu. Like, Nu is going to swing the dagger. She's going to attack with one of the blue attacks. She's going to play attack reactions. It's so simple on paper to understand her play pattern, but the variation in the difficulty in blocking and where they banish cards from, and the power of her hero ability, which, again, really easy to understand on the back end. You just transcend and pitch a blue, and once you've done that, you can play any blue cards. So you can just grab 3 or 4 blue cards from your opponent's pitch, have a look at them, and be like, okay, I can play all of these. How do I sequence them? Really easy to understand, but the complexity enabled by that hero ability, absolutely fantastic. Mask of Recurring Nightmares is horrible. No one should ever play it. It's just such a bad... No, it's too good. This is too good. Don't even use the hero ability. Just use this, right? Until their whole banish zone is free, and then you basically got a free win. And then Enigma is just, I don't know, it's the illusionist I've always wanted. It's not busted with dragons permanently being on the board or angels. She's really fragile in the way that illusionist has always should have been, but wasn't. But then also brings amazing power through her ward attacks. This is a fantastic set. Knocks it out of the park. I was stunned, right? And I've been playing drafts, but I've genuinely just stunned with the level of mechanical complexity, especially following heavy hitters. And even for the ninja, there is complexity there as well, like setting up chase the tail turns, or when to use maul, or how to use, you know, stuff like shifting winds of the something thing. Oh, I can't even remember how to say it. What is it? Shifting winds of the mystic beast, right? Swam. The chats I'm in are all calling me swam. Have you swammed this turn? Can I swam you? It was all going well until I got swammed. I call it shifting because I refuse to say the word swam, but there we go. So swam is good too. You know, and there's just a puzzle to solve that I think we haven't had with heavy hitters. So this is good. Yeah, we'll dig in more to the set in the future. My testing has shown me like Nu is powerful and a bit of a mindfuck. Just in terms of like she'll attack you with a 0 for 1 and then just buff it with 4 times. So you're just like, how much is this coming in for? There's a certain amount of like Dorinthia like learning where you just have to learn how much like Bonds of Agony will get to based on how many cards they have and how many resources and stuff. But the existence of just a Nick kind of throws that into a kilter, because obviously if they have 1 blue and 3 venomous bites, like they're only getting +3, +6, +9, but the fact that they could have 3 or 2 or 1 just a Nick, suddenly you're like, I can't plan for this. So Nu is brilliant in that way. Enigma seems powerful. Yeah, she seems powerful. She's definitely caused a lot of frustration to a lot of the more controlling and slower decks. Zen is just like, I'm going to explode, and I've just done 10 chain links, and I presented 30 or 40 damage. Zen is fantastic. He's everything I want from a ninja. Can I also say that Traverse the Universe is both the best art I have seen on a Fab card to date, while also being just so powerful. Like, I'm running this over Mask of Momentum in some of my ninja decks. It is just that good. Like, wow. This is also fantastic, by the way. All of the equipment in this set is just a win. Meridian Pathway is a win. Mask of Recurring Nightmares is a win. Like, there's no piece of equipment in this set that is not a win. Even the gloves that are down here somewhere. Stonewall Gauntlet is really good. Like, as a meta card against Ninja and other things. Even these Ranger gloves are pretty good. I'm just saying, this is a fantastic set. I feel like the expansion slots were used very well. The art style, fantastic. The design, fantastic. Balance, still to see. But I feel like I'm really happy with this set. Especially with these. I mean, dear Lord. Full art marvels at common rarity. It shouldn't be that hard to get a playset of these. And they are gorgeous. Some of the other marvels, I mean, and even Enigma New Moon, the gold pack I'm really happy with. Like, I would like it if there was a common or a token version of Enigma New Moon. I don't like legendary only heroes, because I think the base investment required to play a hero should just be getting a token card of that hero. But the fact that she's a special printing of a hero in a gold pack that you get at the top of some boxes, like, that is phenomenal, right? That is actually phenomenal. I love the idea of golden ticket packs inside boxes, right? The only thing I will say is that it does further emphasize the fact that you should be not buying loose boxes. You should be buying sealed boxes. Don't buy loose packs. You buy your sealed boxes. Make sure they're not resealed. It might have a golden ticket in. But also, can I say, I just love the fact that they're chucking out what I think was probably an early draft of Enigma into Blitz, just for people to have fun with. I would love to see Blitz. I don't play Blitz much anymore, but if I did, I would love to see Blitz be a hero format where they just had, you know, way more heroes. Just like add a couple new heroes to Blitz every set in the expansion slot, and then just let Blitz become like a 20-30 hero fun format where everyone brings the one they like the most, and don't put anything serious on the line with it. You know, and just have people showing up with Enigma New Moon or Shiana or KO or whatever new heroes they print, right? Blaze, you know, that kind of thing. Just let it be fun. Or, personally, as a thought, replace Blitz with Commoner, because Commoner is so cheap to get into. And I think if you need a casual format, this is just an off-the-top thought, but if you need a casual format that's good for getting new players into the game, then Commoner is better than Blitz. The power level's fine. The costability of the decks are fine. It costs 40 quid to get in. It's a really good taster. The only real problem you have is getting local communities to play it when they don't have new players, to get the new players in the door. Because I know my local community doesn't want to play Commoner, but then we don't want to play Blitz either. We're a CC and draft shop. Maybe if we get new players, we'll play Blitz or Commoner then, but mostly we don't. Other things just to talk about. So the set's fantastic. We'll get into it more as things emerge. But let's just talk about the live letter. So obviously Legendary has been changed. So it's constructed only. And that's just to solve the problem of the Transcend cards, so you can draft more than one of them, right? Nice and easy solution. It does affect Monarch because these cards are also now playable. Soul Harvest and Soul Reaping. Soul Reaping is amazing. If I ever draft Monarch, I will be drafting 3 or 4 of those. There's a change to Arcane Barrier so that it works differently with Fort Lightning. Previously, this was ruled as 2 sets of arcane damage from one source, and that meant that Null Rune could only stop 1 of the damage because it's viewed as one source. So for Null Rune, it's viewed as 4 damage, but for buffs, it's viewed as 2 different types of damage. And now it's been changed. So Null Rune will now work on each individual instance of damage. And Fort Lightning has now been changed to not be a single... Well, it's still a single source of damage, but Null Rune will work to prevent 2 instances of it, right? That means that stuff like Crucible of Aetherweave, Stir the Aetherwinds, Blessing of Aether will all work to buff both of the damage on Fort Lightning, but stuff like Amp will not, right? Aether Wildfire still does, Flicker Wisp is a Runeblade card, so I don't know why it's here. I guess they're just showing the rule will apply to other art classes as well. But Amp specifically says the next time you would deal damage, so that only works on the first line because it's two different effects. Whereas something like Ether Wildfire says every time you do, that will apply to both. And that's a fairly easy to understand. Okay. Yeah. So they work on events of damage, not on cards or layers, so they can be applied once per deck. So the change really is just to acknowledge that Forked Lightning creates two different events of arcane damage. The big change for tournament players, people who listen, is that you can no longer ask for a concession at any point. You can never ask your opponent to concede. Asking your opponent to concede is something that can get you a game loss or a further punishment based on how you have dealt with it. You can also no longer concede once prizes have been discussed. So if you say, oh, these are the prizes for the tournament, I really want to win X, you can no longer concede the game after that point. Now, you can decide not to block, and they can't stop you. And they acknowledge that they can't stop you. But they kind of say if there was a perfect solution, we'd do it. We can't, so we're going on. So you can just non-block if you still want to concede. But once prizes have been discussed, you can't concede. However, it is worth noting this line here. We do think that incentivizing players to play out the game by removing the right to concede will help encourage players to play the game regardless of any discussion of prizes, right? Because they want Living Legend to be actually reflective of who's winning. This is a very important ethos that's driving this decision, right? But they are also looking into ways that players can rearrange placement-based prizes so that concessions are not required for the player to receive a certain prize. So what they're talking about there is you and I both go to a PQ. I can't go to Amsterdam, but I want the gold foil, and I also want to get Living Legend heroes points for my hero Zen, right? Because I think he's powerful, and I want him to get those Living Legend points. I want to get on the Roll of Honor. Now, the only thing for me to do from a social perspective, because you're my friend, is to concede to you, so you're the winner, and that means you get the Pro Tour invite. And in the previous rules, I would agree a split with you, where if I won, I would take the gold foil, and you would still get the win. And I would lose the ELO and not get the Living Legend points for Zen. They're not happy with that. They want Living Legend to reflect the actual winner of the tournament so that the system works better. And they want the person who's winning to win and not feel compelled to not push through with the win, right? So they obviously want to get away with that, but what it's implying is that there will be a box or something that basically lets you decide who gets the placement-based prize. So what that will look like is we finish our pro quest. The first, second, maybe third and fourth players just have a chat. Is player 1 going to the Pro Tour? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. Is player 2 going to the Pro Tour? If player 1 isn't, yes, no, maybe. Is player 3 going to the Pro Tour? Maybe you start playing off for third and fourth to decide who gets that choice. And that way the top 4 gets to actively decide between them who gets the placement-based prize, while the prize and the Living Legend points and all that still go to the winner of the tournament. And then the store would just submit, this is how it's been done for loads of games, by the way, the store would just submit the winner of the tournament and then also the winner of the prize, right? This used to happen in loads of card games I played. It's like the winner of big tournaments in Legend of the Five Rings would get a sponsored flight to the World Championships. But how it was determined was the store told you who got that prize, and the top players at the table would just be like, well, I can't go that week because I've got a wedding. And the second place would just be like, well, I can. And the store would just say, cool, this guy's getting the concession prize. It can get a bit weird because it can pass down too far. So it probably will cut off at like second or fourth. But it's still better than letting people talk about prizes, and also still, better than, anything that might pressure someone to concede. Also worth noting that discussion of future turns is considered asking for a concession. So time gets called. We've all been in this scenario. Time gets called. Your opponent says, well, look, I've got this, this, and this left in my deck. I've got this coming up in my pitch stack. I will win in 2 or 3 turns. That is considered asking for a concession. So that can get you a game loss now. Okay, because it's basically considered a pressure to concede. And one of the things these rules are trying to do is remove the social pressure to concede, which is something that better players will leverage to get worse players to concede to them, right? So if you... And also it says it here, they're trying to stop this discussion because it takes time. at the end of the round, right? So the round ends, you either concede without talking to your opponent about prizes or what's going to happen in the game, or you play your last 2 turns and then you draw, right? That's it. That's all that's going to happen, right? Or you block, or you don't block, and you lose the game because you think you're going to lose. But the point is, they don't like any implication that your opponent should resign, which I like. I mean, it's removing social pressure to do something based on that directly benefits your opponent, right? There's a reason for that. Yeah. LSS is trying to move to a situation where games are played and prize splits don't happen. Now, in a certain world, that is a bit naive, because obviously if there's £10,000 on the line for the winner and £5,000 on line for the loser, then that means we could split 6,000, and then win or lose, we both take £6,000 home, right? There's a good incentive to prize split there and just have, you know, an agreement that the money is going to be split out. But to be fair, it doesn't say that you can't discuss prizes, right? And this is kind of, I think, a level of protection, actually, because I think under the current rules, and we can double check this, and I'll revisit this next time we talk about this, but I can suggest a prize split to you, right? If we're both in a tournament and the winner gets 10 grand and the loser gets 5, I can say, would we both be happy with 6 and de-risk the prizing at the end, right? What I can't do is say, and you know, say for example, if I won, I would only get 5, but if you won, we'd get 10. I can't. This is exactly what happened at Worlds, right? One of the players, if he won, he wouldn't make the top 8 and would only get 5 grand. But if his opponent won, he would make the top 8 and get 10. So he tried to not only prize split, but also prize split and concede, and that was why he got DQ'd. If we agree prize split and then we both play and the result is the result, LSS doesn't seem to have as much of a problem with that. So leave that up to what you will. I mean, that's okay. So things that are okay is just saying, hey, can we prize split, and then playing out and seeing who wins, right? But it has to be independent of the results. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see where they land on this. I'm interested that they are still reviewing and revising the system, because I think the current system was a bit just not great, because people were getting DQ'd for talking about prize splits, which I think is a good thing to talk about. I think if you're playing for a lot of money, it's good to de-risk that and just, you know, get what you can get, right? But I understand why they want people to play games. I understand why they want people to play games. I understand why they want things to hang out. Also worth noting, there are new punishments for slow play. There is now a 3-strike system where judges will give you a caution, a warning, another warning, and then a game loss. The issue is it is subjective and contextual, which LSS acknowledge here. But, you know, judges, apparently on the judge Discord, and I really don't like these things that are like hidden behind social convention rather than codified in the rules. There is a loose guideline which says that a player should get 20 seconds to think per card they have available to them. So if you've got 3 cards in hand, you get 60 seconds to think about your choices. If you've got 3 cards in hand and 1 in arsenal, you get 80 seconds. But without that in the rules as an actual judge guideline somewhere, it kind of is just a bit iffy, because some judges are going to get really strict on slow play. Other judges are going to get soft on it. People are going to not issue warnings because they're not going to properly understand what slow play is. It's still, I don't think this is the problem solved. I appreciate that they're putting in tools to do this, and I think slow play does need to be addressed. Not to call out Brody Spurlock, but an hour and a half, 2 hours to play one game of Fab at a top cut. Like, if I'm the tournament organizer, I'm just sitting there with my hands in my head being like, and for what it's worth, I support the idea of timed top cuts. We have them at my local store because it has a hard cutoff limit. We just have timed top cuts with an extra 10 minutes given per, or 15 minutes given per round, right? Because he just said, look, if you can't finish the game in 70 minutes, then we can't finish the final before I have to close the doors, right? So we just do. And we haven't yet had a case where the game has gone to time. We just haven't, right? So I don't know. Make of it what you will. I think if you put a timer there, people will play to time. I understand not having it at Pro Tour level, but I think you can just put a timer in Top Cuts. I don't think it's that stressful. Just make it more generous. Last note on the news before we finish. So Cloaked has come in. You have to reveal your Cloaked at the end of the game to prove that they were Cloaked cards and not something different. Like just to stop shenanigans with you maybe having 2 headpieces or something and only revealing the one that's most useful to you in the situation. You have to reveal the cards at the end. You're not going to get punished for it very harshly, but if you forget and your opponent asks or the judge asks, you have to show them your equipment, right? So you can imagine a situation where I don't show and my judge comes up to me and says, oh, your opponent said you didn't show. Can I just check? And then I show them and they're like, okay, cool, that makes sense. That's fine. So it's just worth being transparent that you do have to show your cloaked equipment. And the other knock-on effect is you have to now put your equipment in the right place. It's been coming for a while, but this is the official layout to be clear as to what a head, chest, arms, and legs is. You have to put your opponent in those, your equipment in those zones, so your opponent knows what you might have cloaked face down, even if you are not playing a cloaked hero. In addition, they are also toughening up on the rules about where your equipment goes when it's destroyed. Your equipment that is destroyed now must go to the graveyard. Previously, they have been more calm about this. If you did not have graveyard interaction, you did not have to put destroyed equipment into the graveyard. They are obviously tightening this up just to remove any first look confusion at what the layout is of your equipment, what you have available, and obviously when cloaked cards come in, that adds another layer to it. So just be warned. I'm sure judges will give a bit of a leeway for the first or second tournaments where this is in the case, but you are now going to have to follow standard layout. You are now going to have to put your equipment in the graveyard. You are allowed to put plastic cases either under the cards in your graveyard or to the side of your graveyard if there's a hassle or they're slabbed or something like that. But they will have to be in the graveyard or next to it. There you go. That's it. So that's the news. Again, I can't say how happy I am about part of the Mistveil and how just fantastic this set is. I've been kind of blown away. I've started drafting it. It has depth. It has coolness. It has abilities. The art's fantastic. It's ticking all of the boxes for me. I think it's fantastic. It was a shame about what happened in Tokyo. I'm glad that LSS drastically addressed it as quickly as they did and have taken steps to promote diversity and protect the well-being of female casters. And hopefully that will encourage more female casters to put themselves forward for those slots. And of course, I've already seen other people doing it. I recommend you to get involved at a local level, try and cast a Battle Harden, try and volunteer to cast nationals, anything you can do to get evidence of your casting. Just cast online games or re-record games with some casting and practice. Find a friend who wants to cast with you and see who's the better one and all this kind of stuff. Just do it and have fun. And there are great casters out there who will be jumping to fill any slot that appears in the roster. So I'm not really worried that we won't eventually end up with the best casting team possible. As always, I've been Steelfur, Steelfur Speaks. If you liked this, please do like and subscribe. It really does I like it. It makes me feel good. Thanks a lot and speak to you all soon.